Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Social Strategy Pharaoh podcast, where we talk about everything social strategy or whatever. How are you guys doing? Oh, you can't reply. It's fine. Now, we're going on 4 weeks in the Big Brother 23 house. This is week 4 or whatever. Brent just got evicted from the house at the end of last week. Christian became the head of household. He nominated Hannah and Whitney. Christian won the power of veto. He kept the nominations the same. Final nominees are Hannah and Whitney. Whitney is probably going to be leaving the house. This house is still very, very open. There are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of things still going on. We still have the cookout technically running things. And we still have the Royal Flush being technically the big alliance. And then we have a lot of personal alliances within those things. This has been an interesting week because a lot of the dynamics of the previous weeks have kind of shifted a little bit. Certain people are now losing their power positions. Others are maintaining theirs. It's just a lot of interesting things. I'm just going to hop right into talking about the first house guest, and that is Alyssa. Last week, I was very afraid for Alyssa's position because Alyssa was one of the main targets for this coming week. If Christian did not win this HOH, she could have been sitting on the block easily. But Christian did win this HOH, and that's very, very good for Alyssa. Alyssa's game has kind of shifted, and now that Alyssa has power, she's shown her prowess. She showed a hint of it when she was in Jeopardy. Now she's showing another hint of it now that she's in power. Alyssa's the type of player I noticed that once she has the opportunity given to her, she's going to harp on that opportunity. And when she feels like she doesn't have opportunity, she kind of just sits on her position. Alyssa has been doing a lot of work with this HOH, and I really like, and it's not even her HOH, and I really like it. I think the reason Alyssa latched on to Christian was this reason exactly, is that if he wins these competitions, it gives her the opportunity to play the game a little bit harder because she's going to be safe. So throughout this week, Alyssa has been really building bonds with certain people. Other than Christian, she's built bonds with Hannah. She's kind of talked more to Derek X a lot. And she's trying to propose these alliances, these Final Four deals with Claire and Tiffany. She wants to make one with Derek X and either Kylan or Hannah, or I think it's Derek X and Hannah now. They did make one. So now Alyssa and Christian, imposed by Alyssa, have a Final Four deal with Derek and Hannah, and then they have not a Final Four deal. They have a Final Four deal with Claire and Tiffany. They have an agreement with Derek and Hannah to not really go after each other after this, and she plans on making another Final Four deal with her team. What is it? The Kings, with Sarah Beth and Xavier, but she hasn't gotten around to that. But the point being is that Alyssa has done a lot of good work for her because now that she has this Final Four with Claire and Tiffany solidified, it doesn't really benefit necessarily Claire and Tiffany to take them out. Now that Alyssa and Christian are kind of indebted to that, and that's the loyal Final Four for Alyssa. She wants to go to the end with those two. This Derek X and Hannah thing could be helpful if it seemed real. The issue is that it kind of just seems like vague. It doesn't seem too real or too truthful, so it's kind of an issue, but in general it's still a good idea. Alyssa has still been doing a lot of good work for herself and for Christian on top of that, and that's going to help her get farther. Now that Christian has won 2 extra competitions on top of his 2 previous competitions, or 3, whatever, it's making it very, very easy for people to want to target Christian above her. But she's still in a little bit of danger because not everyone wants to do that still. There's still a lot of people who don't want Christian to go, which is weird, but that's just the case. Alyssa still should be doing a lot more work socially. I feel like she's still not spending enough time talking to other people. She's strategizing well and she is doing a little bit more than usual, but it's still not enough. For Alyssa to really capitalize on this position in her game, she needs to really talk a little bit more game with other people like Azah and Brittany, and she really needs to expand her horizons a little more. She needs to actually solidify her numbers and solidify her people, because people like Derek X are still talking about targeting Christian next week, and some people are still thinking about her in the back of her mind, like, oh, in the next few weeks, Alyssa has to go, or Christian has to go, and that's not good for her. So she still has work that she should be doing and that she could be doing, but in general, she did a good job this week, and I like what she's doing. If I had to rate her, I'd give her a 6 out of 10 this week. She did a good job, but I'm nervous for her still. I don't think she'll be going in the next week, but I can see the next 2 weeks or at the double eviction or very soon I can see her game ending, and that's not good. If she can really try to like lock some stuff in, especially some stuff separate from Christian, then that could really help her get further in the game. So I think that's her best bet. The next person is Azah. I still am not a fan of Azah's game, but I think this week Azah has shown a lot of more agency than usual. I think this week Azah has been spreading her wings a little bit more. She's been talking games to people like Hannah and Tiffany more than what she used to. She didn't really used to talk game with anybody other than like Derek F and Brittany. She's talking game to Derek X a little bit. She's starting to turn it up. Maybe it's because it's approaching jury. So now that it's approaching jury, she's like, oh, let me step my game up. And if that's the case, I'm excited for her to actually become more of an active player. One thing I do like about Azah is that she is trying to protect the people she thinks she should be. She thinks she should be protecting Brittany. So she does a lot of work in order to prevent Brittany from going home. When the cookout is talking about, oh, people need to go, everyone outside of the cookout needs to go, our partners need to go, even who aren't in the cookout need to go. She always tries to like protect Brittany from that, and that's good. But in general, I feel like Azah still isn't really spreading her wings enough. She really doesn't talk enough game at all. Even though she's starting to talk a little bit, she still isn't talking enough. I feel like her priorities are just lacking because she's not doing a lot of active work. She needs to be making more bonds. There's a lot of people in the house who don't feel like they know where she stands, don't feel like she talks game to them, don't feel like she is they see her as a wild card, and that's not good. Next week Alyssa is going to be targeting her, and since next week this HOH is going to be a endurance, that's something that Alyssa might be able to win. So if Alyssa wins that and starts targeting Azah, that's not going to be good for Azah. I don't think Azah will go home. I don't see Azah going home anytime soon. I see Azah making it pretty far in this game. But I don't see Azah winning this game because Azah hasn't done much. However, there's a lot of game left. There's weeks and weeks left. She could win HOHs. She could start beasting out on these competitions. She could start changing the way she's playing once jury hits. We have no idea. But as of now, the way she's playing, I think she needs a lot of work. There's really not much else to say. She just needs to start doing a lot of work, a lot of stuff, a lot of socializing, a lot of strategizing. She needs to switch up the route that this house is going towards, because it's not necessarily one that's going to get her the win. If I had to give her a score, I'd give her a 4 out of 10, just because I think she can make it to the end game. And I think she's still positioned decently. So that's good for her. Brittany is the next person. Brittany is trying to play the game. Brittany's trying to make deals with Christian. She's trying to make final 2 deals with him. She's talking game with people, even if it's not necessarily like reciprocated, or if it's not necessarily real for the other person. She's still talking game. She's still involved in some game conversations. But Brittany, I feel, is still at the bottom. I feel like a lot of people are still willing to use her as a pawn in the future, or even next week. Some people are thinking of targeting her next week. But some people are thinking about taking her a little farther. I don't think she's doing enough to optimize her position. I don't think she's making enough bonds or alliances with people. She's kind of just content in where she is a little bit. And that's not good for her. It's kind of similar to what Oz is doing. But I don't even think Brittany's end game is set up. Brittany isn't in any alliances with anyone, really. She really doesn't have many people being loyal to her other than Azah. And Azah isn't enough right now. I feel like Brittany's in a really bad position, but at least she's trying. But for her to turn her game around, I feel like she should move a lot more, do a lot more. But I'm not sure if she has it in her. I don't even see Brittany winning in any scenario. I can't even see in the future her ending up doing something to win. I have a lot of not hope for Brittany. I give Brittany a 3. I feel like I would give her even a 2, but she's not even on the block this week. She's not even at risk for going home. So it's, but I just feel like she has nothing going for her, little going for her, and that's not good. The next person is Christian. Okay, Christian won 2 HOHs this week. He was at risk of going home probably this week or soon because of his competition prowess. And that was scary, but now that he won this HOH, he kind of had the ability to like make bonds or make deals with people. And he tried. He really did try to make deals with people or make or just make Final Fours. Him and Alyssa did do some work to try to agree for people to keep him safe next week. And I think it worked. Like a lot of people were targeting him this week, but now next week, a lot of people are not targeting him. People like Azah are thinking, maybe I don't want to target Christian. A lot of people are thinking, we could use Christian later on. We can get out Alyssa before Christian. Christian is not in that much danger as he was at first. Christian has bettered his position a little bit, even though he won 2 comps. So that's good for him. The issue is that I feel like if the wrong person wins HOH or if the right scenario happens to where he's able to be backdoored, he will be. And that's not a safe position. I feel like he did a lot of work to help himself, but not enough. He still needed to like do a little bit more solidifying, a little bit more mingling and socializing to make people feel really comfortable. People like Derek X are still like afraid of Christian. He still doesn't feel like he can trust Christian, even though they have this agreement now. Derek X is still wanting to target Christian next week. So that's not good for him. He needs to start socializing with these people. He needs to give up this Derek X beef vendetta because that's not good for him. But he still did a little bit of good work this week, and I think his position in the game is decent because he can win competitions. Next week, if Alyssa wins HOH, boom, they made jury, and then Christian can win the next one. They can just do like Jackson and Holly or something, you know? So it's very likely that Christian could still get to the end of this game, or he could still get far. It's likely that he just wins veto if they try to backdoor him. It's likely that people get out Alyssa instead of him and they take him a little farther. So he has a lot of potential. However, I feel like his strategic intellect is just lacking a little bit. He is not necessarily the best at making ideas and making plans. It's kind of the same as how it's been this whole time. I'd give him a 5, I think, this week because anything could really happen. Alyssa could win HOH and he could go far, or Alyssa could go home and he can go far. He could win a comp. Or he could just go home next week. I feel like his game is kind of up in the air. It's kind of just up to what the comps are or who wins the comps. It's kind of up to luck a little bit because there's not much he can do now that he's in this position, in this little duo position with Alyssa. And he's a comp threat. Claire. Claire is in one of the more interesting spots in the house because Claire is really close to Tiffany. But Tiffany's priority is now the cookout. And Claire isn't a part of that. And Tiffany feels like Claire is someone who could easily figure that out. So, therefore, Claire is one of the early targets for the cookout. And if that's the case, that means Claire could easily go first week in jury or soon. The good thing is that Claire kind of feels like she might be a target early in jury. But the bad thing is that Claire trusts Tiffany a lot. So Claire's playing a good game. She's technically she's in a normal season, she would be in a good position because in a normal season, she's in the slaughterhouse. She's in the Royal Flush. She's in the Big Alliance. She's in the core of the Big Alliance. She has a Final Four with Alyssa and Christian. You know, she has a Final Four with Kyland and Derek X. She's in a decent position. But the issue is that that's not the real alliance this season. The real alliance is the cookout, which is a secret, which she doesn't know about. Claire's really, the only thing Claire can do is figure out that the cookout exists. So that way she knows what to do after that. Since she doesn't know it exists, there's not much she can do. She thinks Tiffany has her back. She thinks Kyland and Derek X have her back. And they want to, and they kind of do. But the issue is that since she's so smart, she might be a threat to the cookout. She might have to go. So her game is kind of like in the hands of something that she can't control, which is unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. Other than that, Claire is playing good. Claire does have a lot of awareness, and she knows her position, and she knows what she needs to do with the lens that she has on. The issue is that she doesn't have the full lens on. The cookout is very hard to find out because this alliance is based on natural instincts. It's not based on any inner relationships. It's not based on relationships necessarily made in the house. It's just based on the fact that all of these house guests understand that they need to do this to help represent their culture. So that's something that's going to be very hard to figure out because it's not like she's looking at the house and saying, Tiffany and them, and they had a good bond at the beginning. Maybe they made something. No, that's not what happened. It was just a unspoken agreement. So if the alliance is already an unspoken agreement, how are people not in the alliance supposed to figure it out? It's kind of hard, but there are clues, and Claire's kind of catching on to these clues. She's kind of like, how does Tiffany have a relationship with Xavier? Like, I know Tiffany has a relationship with Kyland, but now she has a relationship with Xavier, and now her and Hannah are really close. Like, how is she just randomly? She never even talked to them that much, stuff like that. Could help Claire get clued in. So it is possible that Claire could find out, but by the time she finds out, she may not have anything she could do. Basically, unlike a lot of these other players, Claire's game is kind of, Claire and Derek X, we're going to talk about, their game is kind of only at fault because of the cookout, not necessarily because of something they personally did or a lack in their game. Claire doesn't really have a fault in her own personal game. Necessarily, she didn't necessarily do anything wrong, especially since this is one of the hardest alliances to figure out. This is one of the hardest secret alliances to figure out because it's not necessarily based on relationships made in the house, so it's kind of hard to fault Claire. And but even with what Claire has and even with the knowledge Claire has, she still isn't optimizing her position. She still doesn't have people around her. She kind of knows that, but her knowing that isn't enough. She hasn't done anything to change that. She knows Tiffany has people and that she doesn't really have that many people, but she hasn't went out and got her own people yet. She hasn't done it yet. So that's still a fault in her game. So if I was to give Claire a rating, I would give Claire a 7 out of 10 because there's a missing link, so that knocks her points, and then she's not doing what she can with the links she does have, so that knocks her a few points. But I still think she's playing a lot better than a lot of these other players, and I still think she's a great player, and she has the ability to win and make it far still. I have hope for Claire. We'll see in the future, but it's gonna be hard, I feel. Derek F. Now, I was knocking Derek F. And at the beginning and in the pregame and like the first week, I was like, Derek F, somebody who I feel like is going to do a little good in this game. I kind of was more hopeful for Derek F than other people. But then that hope went away with the whole Frenchie week. And then a little bit after, I was like, But now that Frenchie's gone, Derek F has now re-entered my mind as someone who I feel like has a lot of potential in terms of like a social game or in terms of like a anyone but me kind of thing. I feel like Derek F is now in a position where he can make it far because no one necessarily is going to want to target him. Everyone kind of sees him as like a weak link minus Claire. Smart gal, but everyone kind of sees him as like useless or like it's pointless for me to get him out. And that's kind of what he wants. And also he kind of is good at having a social game. He's kind of good at making everyone kind of feel at least a little connected to him. People get mad at him, but kind of like as a brother. I'm getting mad at my brother because he makes people feel warm and welcome. People think that Derek F is their friend, and that's good for him. And Derek F is kind of strategic. He still has these strategic bonds with Xavier and Kyland. He still has a strategic bond with Brittany and Azah. He still has a good relationship with Tiffany. And if the cookout is the end goal for these people, then Derek F should be in those end goal plans. So Derek F has a lot of upside. He could make it to the end of that game, and then who's going to really want to get him out in the top 6? Like, they may be like, we could take Derek F to final 2. And depending on how the jury adds up, if they're going to be bitter or whatever they're going to say, that could be good for Derek F, and he could end up winning the entire game. I think right now for Derek F, what he needs to do to better his position is just Alyssa and Christian are people who I feel like he had the opportunity to get a really good lock on them because he had a great bond with Alyssa, and he had a final 2 and a good bond with Christian. He let that bond die around the Frenchie era, but I feel like there's still hope for that. I feel like there's still something in the back of their mind that kind of likes him, and I feel like that's something that he could really put a lot of his energy on to try to bring them back in to liking him. I feel like he needs to really solidify people like who he has a very distant bond with, like Claire. Claire's like the person he has, like Claire and Derek X are the people who he have like the least amount of bonding with, and I feel like he needs to put energy into them because those are the only 2 people really looking at him. So I feel like he needs to solidify things with someone like Christian and Alyssa. I feel like he needs to create better bonds with people like Claire and Derek X. That way he can really have everyone in the house kind of on his good side. And based on the game he's playing, if he does that, he can kind of make it to the end and maybe just try to make a case for himself. But I do see it as a hard for him to win. He kind of is going to have to win against a bitter jury, which could happen. It's happened multiple times before. Overall, I'll give Derek F a 5 out of 10. A 5 out of 10. I think he has just as much as potential as Christian does because Christian's a target. Derek F isn't a target, but Christian can make it far. But Derek F could also make it far. But Christian could win, but Derek F probably could have win. It's probably the same, about what and what. I give Derek F a 5. Derek X. Derek X and Claire, I feel like are in similar positions, in such that they are in decent positions in the house. Derek X is in the royal flush. Derek X has agreements with Christian and Alyssa. Derek X has a final 4 with Kyle and Tiffany and Claire. Derek X has a great bond with Hannah and a final 2 with Hannah. Derek X has a great bond with Azah. So Derek X has a lot of great bonds and a lot of good positioning. However, he's missing a link, and that is the cookout. Everything I said about Claire and the cookout applies to Derek X. Even the part where Derek X is like, Xavier is getting close to Tiffany. What's that about? He still has like the ability to kind of become aware of it, but it's just something that's going to be very, very extremely hard to do. But it's also something that I feel like he could possibly do. I feel like Claire could figure it out before him, but I feel like he could figure it out too. If they were to collaborate and trying to figure it out, I feel like that would be the best way for them to succeed in this game. However, that's just going to be something hard to even think about having to do, you know? But in general, Derek X is in a decent position. No one is people targeting? I think Brittany wants to target him. Certain people do want to target him, which is a problem, which is an issue. However, I feel like even if he's targeted, I don't think he will necessarily go home just yet. I think he's still in a position where he's going to make it pretty, at least to a few weeks in jury, safe and not necessarily targeted. But he does want to take a shot at Christian, and him taking a shot at Christian could make him more of a target. That might be scary for him, a scary situation. But if he's willing to take that and then try to work his way from that, that's something that I think he could do. So maybe he should do it. Derek X is playing a good game, but it's just such a hard thing to analyze considering the cookout is just such a different situation in this season. And the season is just way more complex than a normal season. I just feel like it's hard for Derek X to move forward in the game, but I will give Derek X a 7. I would have gave him an 8, but I feel like he's just because he's being targeted, and just because Christian doesn't really like him, and because Brittany's thinking about targeting him, someone like Azah is thinking about targeting him, Derek F might think about targeting him. That means he has target on his back. So even though he's not, even though he's doing a little bit better than like Claire, he still is a little bit more targeted than Claire, and that's a problem. So I'll just give him a 7 and move along. Hannah Banana. Hannah is nominated, but being nominated in the season, it doesn't really necessarily mean much for the person saying, what do we realize? What we have is what we have realized. Ooh, that was hard. Anyways, at the beginning of this week, Hannah was the target. She talked her way out of being the target, and she helped herself get a good bond with Christian, and well, she already had a good bond with Christian, but she helped herself get in a good position with Christian and Alyssa. Now we're to the point where Hannah isn't really going to be targeted by anybody next week necessarily. The only people who might be looking at her is maybe Brittany, but I don't think that's going to go through. Brittany's kind of changed her train of thought on who she wants to target here and there, but maybe Brittany. Even if she's nominated, she's probably going to be protected by the cookout. So that's good for her. She's now in a lot of in-game plans. She's now included with Tiffany and Xavier as the core of like the cookout. So that's really good for her. She has a final 4 with Derek X, Tiffany, and Claire that she's going to work on. There's a lot of different situations that Hannah is now included on. She has a lot more avenues to go to. She's done a lot more strategy and a lot more positioning for herself. She's tried to make better bonds with like Azah this week. She's tried to get in good positions with people. Oh, Sarah Beth's going to target Hannah next week too. But she still has a little bit of a target, but it's not that much. And I feel like her protection is outweighing that target a lot. I have a lot of hope for Hannah, but I want Hannah to do a little bit more. Hannah is still a little bit like kind of behind, like she still isn't fully situated. I feel like she needs to do a little bit more for herself. A lot of the things she's involved in is induced by Tiffany or involving Tiffany. She still needs to branch out and do some things for herself and really solidify some things for herself elsewhere. And then I will be able to feel like she's like actually a power player. I feel like what she's doing is good, but she needs to keep up the momentum, right? She's not going home this week, and she's probably going to be in a decent position. Hopefully she can win like this next HOH or something. That'll be really good for her. But right now I'll give Hannah a 6 out of 10. Just because she's nominated, she might be targeted, and she's doing okay, but not necessarily perfect. The next person is Kyland. Woo boy. Kyland is... Whoa, boy. Whew. At the beginning of this week, apparently Tiffany was telling Kyland, like, oh, you need to calm it down a little bit. Kyland took her advice. He trusted her. He liked that. And then throughout the week, Kyland kind of spent a lot of time with Sarah Beth, and Kyland kind of slipped up with Tiffany about his relationship with Sarah Beth. All of these things led to Tiffany, the power player in the house, feeling like Kyland is now not her best friend. Therefore, Tiffany has been doing a lot of work that has led to Kyland kind of really diminishing his position. He was in a great position, a wonderful position. He had a lot of avenues covered. Now he doesn't really have his avenues covered. One of his number one, Sarah Beth, is now going to be targeted by a few of the house guests next week, but he could flip that around. Xavier has now kind of left his side and kind of moved toward the Hannah and Tiffany side of things, which is losing another number for him. Derek X is still loyal to Kyland, which is good, but it's kind of scary because he hasn't really been nurturing that relationship that much. So Kyland is still in a decent position, but his positioning has dropped a lot. I don't think he's going to go home anytime soon. I don't see people necessarily targeting him. No one necessarily wants to get him out next week. The most that could happen is him getting nominated next to Sarah Beth, but I don't even think that's going to happen. However, he still has lost a lot of his groundwork in this game. A lot of his people have been pulled away from him, and he's lost grip on them. But I could easily see him turning that around very soon next week. And I could see him flipping things for himself. So I'm not too worried about him, but it's went down for me. I will give first of all, what Kylan could do is start playing the game again, start doing what he was doing these last 2 weeks, which I think he will do. He knows exactly what he should do, so there's not really much for me to say other than do it. I feel like he needs to focus on getting out Christian and Alyssa. I think those are the people he needs to be targeting, and I think he needs to kind of reiterate that idea into the house's minds so that they'll get off of Sarah Beth. I think he needs to re-establish his relationships better with Tiffany, Claire, Derek X, Hannah, Xavier, people who should be including him and stuff, who have now been trying to back away from that. And then he needs to re-establish his relationship with Big D. And he needs to make sure Sarah Beth stays in this game. And I think those things will help him tremendously. If Alyssa or Christian go next week, he could be in a good position again. I have a lot of hope for Kylan. I feel like Kylan can really flip the way that this week has went for him. And you know what? Now that I don't think about it, I might buy all my Kylan stock for the stock watch because I think he'll be doing good. I think he'll do good. Unless Sarah Beth goes. Wish she could. But even if she goes, should that bring his... Yeah, because Sarah Beth's so important for him. Maybe not, because Sarah Beth could go. Okay, next is Sarah Beth. Sarah Beth has also dropped because, let me tell you why. Sarah Beth was kind of screwed by Kylan. Kylan kind of exposed her to Tiffany. Same thing with what I just said about Kylan and the Tiffany thing. But Tiffany doesn't want Kylan to go because Kylan was her number one, and he's in the cookout. That's not someone she necessarily wants to go. All the backlash from what Kylan kind of did is kind of going to be going to Sarah Beth because that's the person who he included in that. Sarah Beth is going to be extremely targeted by Tiffany. Tiffany has put a lot of energy on trying to get Sarah Beth out, which has kind of been fading away because a lot of people are realizing Sarah Beth going isn't the best for their game. But the issue is that next week, if the HOH isn't like Sarah Beth or Alyssa, Tiffany's still going to be pushing this narrative. And Tiffany is good at getting what she wants. So I feel like Tiffany could end up re-establishing this target on Sarah Beth that has kind of faded away. Also, Sarah Beth hasn't done a lot of work to get the target off of her. Sarah Beth hasn't really established any relationships or made any bonds to get the target off of her. And that's because Sarah doesn't necessarily know that there is a target on her. Because she spent a lot of time working against Hannah, that off-put a lot of people on her. Xavier and Tiffany kind of are like, ooh, no. So someone like Xavier, who she kind of had on her side, isn't really going to be on her side anymore. So that's bad for her. But I feel like there's a chance for Sarah Beth to come back from this. There's a chance for Sarah Beth to survive next week. And then it's kind of like, oh, me and Kylan, and then her and Kylan kind of relink and rekindle and they get things together. But still, I could see Tiffany pushing really hard for Sarah Beth to get up on that block next week. Which is not good because even if she's on the block as a pawn, if they can't get out, like if they want to get out Christian and she's the pawn, if he can't get out, if he can't get backdoored, then bye Sarah Beth. So let me go through. I'm gonna go through this real quick for myself. Plus, I mean, hey, it's a podcast. I can do what I want. I'll do it at the end. Actually, moving along. Tiffany. Tiffany's been doing I feel like the same that she's been doing in the past. However, she's been a little bit less careful about her relationships. She really dropped Kylan very hard. He's not a necessary piece to her game. No one is necessary for Tiffany. Tiffany could lose any person in this house, and I feel like Tiffany will still be good. However, he is someone who is helpful. I don't think she needs to be doing this with a relationship that can be helpful. I think Tiffany needs to be a little bit more careful with her relationships and her nurturing of those relationships. She's good at building them, but she needs to continue to nurture them, and she needs to not neglect them no matter what the situation is. And I think that's what she's doing with Kylan a lot. And that's not healthy for her. That's not going to help her. It's not going to make Kylan want to go to Final Two with her anymore. He's going to want to make his own other plans. She knows Kylan's a capable player. So for her to have him on her like bad side, that's not him on her on his bad side. That's not good for her. Other than that, she's still doing good. She's still in a great position. She's still trying to push her narrative, and her narrative is still being received decently well. No one's necessarily catching on to her game. But another fault in her game is kind of the end game for her, because if she wants to go to the end with the cookout, it's going to be a hard path to victory for her, because the cookout are smart enough, have a lot of smart people who will know that Tiffany can't be in the final two. So I feel like if she does end up in the final six with the cookout, it's going to be hard for her to win. Luckily for her, I feel like it's going to be hard for the cookout to make it to the final six, so that's good for her. But in general, I feel like it's going to be a hard path to the victory. But it's possible. It's not a big knock, but it's still like a. Other than that, it's hard to. Tiffany's still a great player, and she's still doing good. So other than that, I'll still give Tiffany I'll give her an 8. That's so low. I feel like the mistakes I'll give her an 8. I'll give her an 8. That's still really, really good. That's an 80. You got a fucking B, bitch. You're fine. I'll give her an 8 just because the relationship building, that's bad. Like, what are you doing? The in-game plans, I don't know if they're gonna work. You got to be a little bit more careful. You got to really. She's not playing so self-interest. She's playing group interested. Even though she's still playing self-interested, she's still setting herself up in the best way in that group. But she's still doing what's best for the group, not necessarily what's best for her. You know what I'm saying? But it's weird because she's still doing what's best for her within that group, but what's best for the group. But what's best for her? It's like she doesn't even know what the fuck she's doing. I don't know. It's confusing, but hey. Next is Whitney. Whitney's going home. What Whitney could have did was at the beginning of this week, she could have did a lot of more work on trying to put the target back on Hannah. Hannah did say a lot of things about Kristen and Alyssa. Hannah said a lot of things about a lot of people. Even if Hannah didn't say a lot of things, if I was Whitney, when I got nominated, I would have talked to them and I would have been like, hey, am I the pawn? If they were like, ooh, I would have been like, okay, well, I understand. Maybe I'm not the pawn. Maybe I'm the target. But I just want to let you know, I already told you guys I wanted to work with you. And what I didn't tell you what I didn't tell you was a lot of other things. And the reason I didn't tell you this was because I still wanted to keep my team safe, because we're still in teams and it's better for me for my team to be safe. However, since now I'm in the limelight, now I might be the target, I need to tell you guys honestly what's going on. All last week, Derek X and Hannah were coming to me. They were coming to me. They were talking to me about, we need to target Christian and Alyssa. Christian and Alyssa are our biggest enemies. The Kings are the biggest enemies. This is what they told me. I'm letting you guys know this because I already came to you before you won HOH. Proposing this alliance, I wanted to get a good bond with you guys because I already knew they were coming for you guys. And since they were coming for you, I wanted to continue on my path. And I wanted to continue on my vision of what I wanted to do in this game, which was go with the Slaughterhouse or with this group that we already had formed with you guys and Xavier. This is what I want to work with. I don't want to work with Derek X and Hannah. So as soon as they were telling me that stuff, I was coming to you guys to try to make an alliance with you guys so that eventually when the time came, I could let you know what was going on. The only reason I didn't tell you is because they were on my team and I knew it's not beneficial for my team to be targeted. That's it. But all bets are off. If Hannah is up here trying to make it seem like I should be the target, that's not the case. Like, that shouldn't be. Right now, the backdoor, y'all should be planning the backdoor Derek X. She should have said that day one when she got nominated. She should have kept talking to them, just socializing. She doesn't even have to continuously game talk to them. She could have just kept checking up or, hey, you want to talk? Hey, Alyssa, girl, look, I'm telling you, this girl Hannah, she's trying to play. Yeah. I feel like if Whitney kept pushing this Hannah DX thing, she could have gotten Derek X backdoored this week. If Whitney was a capable player, if Whitney was a little bit more aggressive of a player, she could have easily gotten the veto used on her, gotten Derek X put up. Derek X would have been out of this house. Would that have been the best thing for Whitney's game? Yes, because she's not going home. I was going to say no because she, best case scenario, someone else goes home. But at this point, she's the target. If you're the target, anyone but you. She should have did this. She should have made Derek X go home. She could have done it. Kristen does not trust Derek X. Alyssa barely trusts Derek X. The trust got built because Derek X and Hannah put a little bit of work. Not even the trust, but the agreement got built because Derek X and Hannah put in so much work to make it happen. Whitney put in no work. Now she's going home. The only reason Whitney's going home is because she decided she wanted to go home. I don't think Whitney necessarily wants to be in the house, so she didn't work that much. And she was like, I can't just quit. No, you're not working. She just kind of quit. It's weird because this season it just kind of feels like the people going home just didn't even try. Like of course Brenton didn't know, but that's still weird. He didn't even try. Frenchie didn't really even try. Travis didn't really even try. No one tried. It's just weird. It's like the person who stayed, or Alyssa tried, Brittany just wasn't the target twice. And now Hannah tried and Whitney just didn't try. It's like, why are you not? It's just weird. But after this week, now that Whitney's gone, everyone left in the game, minus Brittany, no offense, are like people who have are in an alliance. They're in, either you're in the Royal Flush or you're in the Cookout or you're Brittany, which means anyone but Brittany going home next week is a backstab, is a blind, or is a oop, because everyone's in either or. So that's interesting. That's really interesting. Really, Brittany just needs to go week 5 so that the jury could be everyone in the Cookout and everyone in the other alliance. That'd be so funny. Anyways, but yeah, so that's interesting. Next, last but not least, Xavier. I kind of like the way Xavier's game is going. What's not good for Xavier is the Sarah Beth narrative. However, Xavier just doesn't play like that. It's kind of like who was I talking about earlier? It's kind of like, I forgot who I was talking about. I don't know. Anyways, Xavier just doesn't play like that. That's just not the game he's playing. He just doesn't play the let me be puppet master. He's not a puppet master. And this is an issue, I feel like, in the Big Brother community. I feel like this is an issue in the Big Brother analysis situation, is that a lot of people, a lot of podcasters, fans, players think that there's one type of gameplay that is the most optimal, right? I disagree. I don't think you have to be the mastermind puppet master. I don't even think you have to be the strategist necessarily, or the best one or the most extreme one to be great at this game. I think people understand that, but people don't show that they understand that. I feel like a lot of people knock people for not being overly strategic or for not being very strategic. People like Xavier, I feel like, are looked at as a little bit lesser of a player than someone like Tiffany or even Claire, because he just has a little bit less strategic insight. Xavier kind of reminds me, no, he doesn't. He doesn't remind me of anybody, but I just feel like Xavier just doesn't play like that. I feel like Xavier plays like, very malleably. He doesn't play as the king or the queen. He plays like the fucking bishop. I don't know. He just plays a little bit differently. He just has a different play style. I wish I could think of a better analogy for this. Xavier isn't the, because that's not a good one. I'm gonna think of one. Give me one freaking second. I can't think of one. Xavier is not the mover, but he's also not the moved. He's not the person who's puppeteering, but he's also not the puppet. He is the string. I don't know. Like he's just another entity. Basically, what I'm trying to say is Xavier's just not the type of person to actively manipulate or actively create or actively whatever. He's just someone who's going to be a part of. I'm just going to be a part of this group. I'm going to make sure I get a part of this group. And he gets to be a part of these things just by the way he plays. He just socializes and he puts himself in positions. He allows himself to be included because he's so available. What Xavier does is leaves himself available. Xavier is very available. Everyone thinks they can have Xavier because he just leaves himself available, which is good. He doesn't really tie himself down to one particular instance or one particular idea or one particular situation. He leaves himself very open and available. Therefore, people think they can just grab him. And that's going to tug him along in the game. It's going to be hard for people to not think that he's valuable to their game. I think everyone in this house believes that Xavier is valuable to their game, minus Brittany, maybe. And that's good for him, and I think that's what he wants to do. So based on the way he is playing, I can give him I think he's doing good. I think the issue with his game is that he may not be seen as an active person because of his play style. Therefore, when he's trying to get the votes at the end, they may be like, Xavier, what did you do? What did you actually do? What's your biggest move, Xavier? He's the type of person to not have one, which is scary, but it may not matter, right? But it could matter. And I think that's the biggest knock on his game. I also feel like he's not the best positioned. He's not in the best place in the game, but I don't think he cares. But analyzing his game, you have to care, because if you're not in the best position, that means you're not playing the best, or you're not playing optimally, because you could get voted out before other people. It's more likely Xavier gets voted out than it is that Tiffany gets voted out. So he can't really be on her level. So with that being said, I'll give Xavier a 7. I don't think he's going to go home anytime soon. I think he could easily end up winning this game. I think he could easily make it to the final 2. I think he can make it really far. I don't think he's going to be targeted. Even if he is targeted, I don't think he's going to go home. I think he has a lot of intelligence. I think he knows how to play this game well. And I think he can make it far. So there you go. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. And what I was going to do earlier is I was going to try to go through who everyone is thinking about targeting next week. So just to see who's most likely to go home. So Alyssa's going to target Azah. So that's one person targeting Azah. Azah's going to target, I don't even know. I keep forgetting. Who's Azah going to target? God, I don't remember who Azah or Brittany's going to target. Shit, I done fucked up. I think Brittany's going to target Derek X. I think Azah is going to target Alyssa and Christian. Alyssa and Christian. Christian can't win. Claire is going to throw. So I'm not even gonna go through it. But if Claire wins, she'll probably target Sarah Beth. Derek F is gonna probably target either Alyssa or Christian or Sarah Beth. Derek X is gonna target Christian or Sarah Beth. Hannah's gonna target Sarah Beth. Kylan's going to target. Kylan's not gonna want to win, but if Kylan does end up winning, he's going to target. Who's Kylan? Oh, Alyssa and Christian. Maybe Alyssa and Christian, because he doesn't have any other, or Brittany. Sarah Beth's going to target Hannah. She's fucking annoying. Tiffany's gonna target Sarah Beth, and Xavier's not gonna want to win, but he's gonna target Sarah Beth. Okay, so still a lot of people wanted to target Sarah Beth, but Xavier doesn't want to win. Claire doesn't want to win. Kylan doesn't want to win. Tiffany does want to win. She's going to target Sarah Beth. Hannah does want to win. She's going to target Sarah Beth. Sarah Beth's going to target Hannah. Azah, all the jokers, Azah, Brittany, and Derek F, might target Alyssa and Christian, and Alyssa is going to target Azah. So that's basically the layout. So a lot of people are going to either target Sarah Beth, Alyssa, Christian, and then maybe like one person's going to target Azah. So next week, most likely going home is probably going to be Alyssa, Christian, or Sarah Beth. Period. And like, if it's neither of them, it's probably Brittany. So I think from most likely to least likely, it'll be Sarah Beth, because I feel like Tiffany's going to push that. Alyssa, Christian, then Brittany. I feel like Christian is third because he's going to probably win the comp. Like, it'll be interesting if he doesn't. But yeah. So that's how it's looking. Next week's not looking good for none of those. I don't want to pick none of them for the stock watch. So yeah, there you go. That was the conversation. Thank you for tuning in. Join me next week on Wednesday for the same thing. I'm going to be talking about Everybody Left in the House. Whitney's not going to be here most likely. So it'll only be 12 people. And then we'll be so close to jury. That'll be so exciting. The Teams Twist is over next week. We'll see how that goes. This is going to be exciting as fucking week. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.